All right, welcome to the last video here on the lesson 5.7, which is essentially, what's new here is this thing called CPCTC, right? Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay. So in previous lessons, we've really focused on, okay, how do we prove that triangles are congruent? And in this lesson, we're just taking that extra step and saying, all right, once we know that these two triangles are congruent, then any pair of parts will also be congruent. Okay, so it's just adding one extra statement at the end of a proof. Okay. You might recall that the directions here for problems 4 and 5 were to show that angles 1 and 2 are congruent. Okay. So I can see here that angle 1 is a part of this small triangle here in the bottom left of the figure. Angle 2 is a part of this similar looking triangle kind of on the bottom right of the figure. So in my mind already, I'm thinking, okay, I've got to prove that these two triangles are congruent. Okay. Right now, I don't know a whole lot about these triangles. I know that I've got one pair of congruent sides, but that's about it. Okay. Actually, I take it back, right? They share this side in the middle, right? So I know that I have, two pairs of congruent sides, right? I guess I can put a triple tick mark here. Right, so EC, which is a side of the left triangle, is congruent to EC, which is also a side of the right triangle. Okay, so I have two pairs of sides, so either I need another pair of sides or maybe a pair of angles. Okay. I'm not quite sure how I would show that the third sides are congruent. Okay. But I think I have a plan for how to show that these two angles down here are congruent. Okay. So hear me out. Okay. This figure has many triangles in it. One triangle is this one here, I'll highlight in orange, A, B, C. And another triangle in this figure is, I'll highlight it in yellow, A, C, D. So I can see that the orange and yellow triangles have one pair of congruent sides, two pair of congruent sides, and then their long side AC is actually going to make up the third pair, right? The segment AC it's just one segment, but it's a side in the orange triangle and it's a side in the yellow triangle. Okay, so by the reflexive property, right, that long side AC is going to be congruent within both triangles. Okay, so let's write some of this information down as a proof. Okay, so I'm going to say, let's start with the short side, BC and CD. BC is congruent to CD, that's given. Then AB and AD are congruent, given. And then AC orange is congruent to AC yellow by the reflexive property. So what I just did there is I have three statements about congruent sides. So that's my side, side, side method. So I can now write that the orange and yellow triangles overall are congruent. Okay. So triangle A, B, C is congruent. Let's see, A, B, C, A, D, C. Okay, and that's the side, side, side congruence there. Okay, cool. So now that I've shown that these orange and yellow triangles are congruent, I can go look at their parts and find other pairs of parts that are congruent. So I can say that these two angles are congruent now, these two angles are congruent, but the one that I'm most interested in are these two angles down here, right? So let's call this angle 3 and let's call this one angle 4. Okay. So we can now write that angle 3 is congruent to angle 4 by CPCTC, right? Angles 3 and 4 are corresponding parts from congruent triangles, orange and yellow. Okay. Right. Now, though, angles 3 and 4 are also angles within these triangles. Okay, so there we're going to now look at this blue triangle as well as this orange triangle. Okay, maybe I'll color it in to make it stand out a little bit more. So now we're focusing on just the blue and the green triangle. Okay, so the blue and green triangle, we see they have one pair of congruent sides, they have a pair of congruent angles, and they already have this other pair of congruent sides. And so by the side angle side theorem, we're going to then say that these two triangles are congruent. Okay. So let's kind of write that as a separate proof. Okay, so we'll start with the side BC and CD. Okay, BC congruent to CD. Okay, and those marks are already given. Okay, and then the angles 3 and angle 4. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 4, and that was because of CPCTC. So that's kind of like just I'm repeating that previous statement. And then the other side, EC in the blue triangle and EC in the green triangle. Okay, those are going to be congruent. We mentioned earlier that that's just the reflexive property. Okay, so that's side angle side, right? Side angle side. Okay, so now we can make a claim that the blue and green triangles are congruent, right? It fits the side angle side method. Okay, so let's call the blue triangle BCE, and the green triangle would be DCE. Okay, and so that was because of side angle side congruence there. Okay. So this is kind of a long proof. It involves multiple triangles. We first had to show that the orange and yellow triangles were congruent, and then use one of their pairs of corresponding parts. And then now we've shown that the blue and the green triangles are congruent. Okay, and now that we've shown that, okay, we can finally make claim that these two angles, angles 1 and 2, are congruent, right? Because they belong to congruent triangles. So our last statement is going to be angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. All right, that's what we were trying to prove all along. Okay, and our reason is CPCTC, right? These two angles belong to congruent triangles, so they are also congruent. All right, so there's the whole proof in all its glory. All right, I hope you found these videos helpful, and I look forward to seeing you guys in our Zoom meeting.